your own work with your own nervous system to understand that you are the biggest impediment between you and the best version of yourself. You. That's it. There's nothing else. Who cares if it's successful in the end or not? I have confidence that if I hold those principles inside of me and I listen to my intuition, we're going to be the best team to discover if this thing should be successful or not.
Dope. I feel like I'm in the Ben Rubin's mind right now. I've been doing like research the past couple of days, listening to some old interviews of you.
What did you learn?
So it's a few things. I mean, it's just been cool, like to go down the memory lane as somebody who loves social apps. I worked at LinkedIn, Snapchat. I did a social app startup for food lovers for about 2 years. And so just
Wow.
I'm fascinated with like social apps and learning
What
about your
was
story from
the
Meerkat, Houseparty, and
what was
etc.
that? Tell me about wait, tell me about the foodie app.
Yeah. One of my best friends from working at LinkedIn, he's like the biggest foodie I've ever met in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And so he wanted to like help food lovers connect with other food lovers, and just so it was almost like a visual version
Oh,
of a food version of Instagram only for food. People can like upload the dishes, the recipes, places that they were eating. Um, and yeah, we did pretty good. I mean, we lasted 2 years, but then the pandemic hit. We tried raising capital, and things were just slowing
should
down.
have switched it to
So
just recipes in the
yeah,
pandemic.
we
Huh?
could have, but these startups cost money to run, and when VC
No
funding is
way.
drying up, yeah. But yeah, so this would be a fun conversation for me, just because you're the social app expert, and I'm fascinated by social apps. Um, so I guess it's just some framing for the conversation, because you're one of the most like founder type personas that I've had on the show. I think some framing for you is, imagine you're speaking to a first time founder,
Uh-huh.
as like we kind of have this conversation. So maybe just like reflecting back, or think like framing things in a way where like, shit, if I would have known that when I was building, Meerkat or Houseparty, like I wish I would have known this exact insight.
Unfortunately, the tragedy in this line of business is that if you're any good, you're only going to learn by trying what you think you should do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
That's because everyone has their journey to go through,
Yeah.
and they're just walls that they have to go through. Even
Mm,
and if they are the kind of founder that take the advice that other people like face value, they're not the right people for the job. You know what I mean?
mm,
Because the
yeah.
job is to essentially be in disagreement with what most people say 8 out of 10 times. That's
Mm,
how you make real big companies, because you're doing something despite what people think is the right way to do, right?
yep.
Um, and you can point out to all the successes that basically somebody just looked at something and said like, hey, this should be different, but the market wasn't there, right? If the market was there, there would be no upside to gain. You know what I mean?
Well, I guess with that in mind, what role does like mentorship play for like early stage founders? Like you said, like, you kind of have to have like a little bit of a
In what
stubborn,
sense?
yeah.
In what sense mentorship? Like when you say mentorship, in what sense do you mean mentorship?
Like you say like the sense that I got is that you kind of have to be a little bit stubborn, in the sense that like if you're a founder, you have to go against the grain and do things and kind of go through these walls. But if there's somebody that can kind of
You
give
need
you a
to
little bit of a
listen
heads up,
to your own intuition, right? And it
gotcha.
is the tragedy in our line of work is that there is no there's not like a CPA that manage your wealth is going to say like, well, we're going to put it there, we're going to do this, this is going to do this. There's nothing to listen to,
Mm,
because for you to do your job and get the best out of yourself with the work that you're doing as a founder with the startup, you have to do it your way. You have to go through the walls that you absolutely must go through.
yeah.
And that requires failure, because inherently, if you're going through, if you're moving around and everything is what everybody expects, that's how you see startups raise, $400 million and go to nothing, because everybody
Mm,
thinks it's a good idea. You know,
yeah.
it's actually the ones where like you have some point of view that is, as I said, 8, 9 other people say like, actually, That seems too risky. That doesn't make sense, right? And to have that kind of stubbornness and mentality, to your point, like you can't really take it by. You can't really listen to a podcast and say like, I heard Ben say that, so I'm going to override my intuition. You want to listen and be curious about how other people deal with their own intuition and
Mm,
curiosity, and have that as inspiration to deal with your own journey.
yeah.
But because I did stuff in my journey that proven right or wrong, it doesn't mean that, um, maybe that's the thing that people should listen to.
Yeah, I like that.
You know what I mean?
Um, so I think people know you for, building like a super viral app, Houseparty during the pandemic. All of us were using it.
Mm.
But is
It
there a
did have
recurring?
a big wave on pandemic, but it's been, since 2016, it had like 20 million, 30 million
Yeah, that's
daily active,
incredible.
and it just got to more adulthood usage, rather than high schools during the pandemic. Yeah.
Is there like a recurring theme or goal that you've had throughout the different products that you've built throughout the years?
Yeah. There are all spaces for people to come together. That's what I studied at school. I studied architecture. And in a sense, I am an architect for digital spaces. That's what I like to build. So these are the themes. I really like my work. I like the work that I'm doing. I like the type of work that I'm doing, the teams that I'm working with. I like to think about spaces. I do it with my own personal physical spaces. And I like to think about it in the digital space because there is so much flexibility with how you can bring people together, right?
Yeah.
And I think it can be poetic on both sides. It can be poetic on the physical spaces, but you can also make things poetic on the digital spaces. You know,
Where do you think that comes from? Do you like, is it tied to your upbringing, or what were you like as a kid? Did you like bringing people together?
um, not necessarily. Not that I didn't, but it's just it's more like I always enjoyed spaces and the phenomenon of spaces, like just experiencing spaces. And I love people. So I think those combinations, it was always obvious to me that I'm going to be an architect. It was not a question. I didn't know that
Mhm.
I'm going to be an architect of digital spaces, but it was always known to me. And like I knew all the time that this is what I want to do. Um, and I think there is something about architecture where when you go and you study architecture, you actually need to think about so many different layers of your product, from engineering to financial models to how people experience it. What is the context of the neighborhood? What is the context of the scale, on the human scale? There's so much of it, and you're basically taking an idea from nothing to existence, and then it also need to be tasteful and exciting for people to use, which is very much like building any kind of consumer packaged good or consumer product,
Mm.
um and in a sense, because shelter is one of the most primal and first products for us humans. I do think that if anyone wants to be a product builder, learning architecture is something they should be considering, or at least if they're preschool, like just because it doesn't mean that you need to be an architect. It
Yeah.
or sorry, I mean, if you go very in a meta level, you are an architect anyways,
Yeah.
when you're building products. But yeah,
Did you gain any inspiration from like bringing people together in person, like events, conferences, concerts, festivals, or anything like that, or
I don't like
like tied into the products?
conferences one
Really?
bit. I don't like conferences one bit. I don't like. I would gladly spend 3 hours talking to three people than 3 hours or 6 hours talking to 1,000. I like meaningful connections. I like enduring connections. And I think conferences are a tool. I don't think they're a space to get some, intimacy in the sense of like actually getting to know someone.
Yeah.
And I do think that like in terms of when you think about it, relationships, and I reflect on that often because I didn't grow up in Palo Alto. I didn't go to, I'm not from the Bay Area. I'm an immigrant. I didn't go through the routes that usually people do. I don't have an MBA. I don't have a spreadsheet with a bunch of ideas over a bunch of markets and like going through the things and because of that, my journey is very much of an architect that has ideas to build spaces and
Mm.
comes and try to, and I need to find ways to underwrite them, right, in a way that both the consumer will buy the house and the VC will underwrite the house, right, in a sense.
Yeah.
And through that lens of building, that's how I go about my journey in the past
Mm.
13 years. And because of that, there's some opportunities that I didn't capitalize on because I just didn't see them like the way other people in my position would see at different times. But on the other end, I assign a lot of value to compounding relationship, to continue to work with the same people, to continue to build meaningful relationship. And I have noticed that over time, the way you show up in relationships like this over time, it becomes very rare. And if you have good taste about who you choose to spend your time and energy with and who you choose to enlist to your team or capital you choose to enlist, you actually, it goes a long way because people can just give you a lot of trust. They're like, we work with Ben, we know Ben, we know that, and that there's a lot of, and I find it to be very calming to my nervous system because sometimes I have crazy ideas that I need people to jump on. And if I didn't have all of this, it will be a grind to have people.
Yeah.
And in that case, when I look back, I'm very fortunate because I got to work with Sequoia Capital, with Andreessen Horowitz, and with Benchmark. And these are my biggest, and this is like pretty good for, in terms of who are underwriting my buildings, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And when when you think about like the people that are working with me, also amazing. I have people that I work with for 12 years over three different
Wow.
projects. I've seen
It's
them
cool.
before they got married, after they got married, after they had their first kid, second kid. Like that's amazing. And it's the kind of life I like to lead, and the kind of things I want to build. And I think we're also like everything we do is a reflection of us. You
Mm.
know the way we put socks, tie our shoes, the way we clean the kitchen, our company, the people, how they show up, the company is a reflection of the founder. Um, so I think it all matters, how you
Yeah.
show up in all these things matters.
It's interesting how you say like your point on relationship building, and I like as a consumer of your products and outside looking in, I can see how that's tied into like
Mhm.
the apps themselves and how like they foster like one-to-one relationship or meaningful relationships versus uh weaker tied relationship building where it's like I guess Twitter's probably a better example of that where it's just like more surface level, less depth. Only a certain amount of
Mhm.
characters that you can say a certain amount of things where you can perceive who you are and build relationships at scale.
Yeah.
Whereas like a
Although,
Meerkat and Houseparty in towns. Yeah.
sorry to interrupt. Yeah, I do think Twitter, in the beginning, and I still to extend now, maybe post Elon, they do much more algorithmic things, but there was a lot of intentionality, and it did bring intimacy to the sense that
Mm.
like, oh, like here's somebody who's like a celebrity or something, but I can see their text, like I can see what they're
Yeah.
thinking. There is something there that I think was really important for the first wave of growth of Twitter. But yeah, I completely you're right. Yes. In Meerkat, for example, we were the first to put, like, basically the way Facebook, Instagram Live is, Twitter Live, all this stuff. It's all kind of like inspired on the things that we did with Meerkat, where we put the watchers at the
Mm.
viewers' profiles on the screen, and we did a lot of, like, put overlaid the comments on the screen, and
What year was
we
that? What year did you
it was
launch Meerkat?
2015.
Wow, that's really early.
Yeah, yeah. No, it was the first like real live video breakthrough. And Houseparty was for group FaceTime the same way.
Yeah, there was something before Meerkat, right? Was that
Yeah,
Yivo?
well, yeah. Well,
Yivo. Yeah,
my first
your first baby, your
my first
firstborn.
pancake. My first pancake.
Can we talk a little bit about that? I mean, everybody spends time talking
But
about
first
the viral hits,
pancakes?
Yeah,
Oh,
let's talk
dude,
about that.
first pancakes are very important. Because
Yeah,
otherwise second pancakes are not good. If you didn't have first pancakes, your second pancake would be shitty. You know?
that's so true. Nobody wants the
Yeah,
first pancake.
yeah, sometimes you get a great first pancake.
Yeah,
Sometimes you get a great, but we all know it's rare. And
yeah,
I think first pancakes sometimes sometimes friends are like, they come for advice or something, and I don't believe I have, as I said, I don't believe there is a lot. But what I can offer is perspective,
Mm.
and maybe not advice, but I can offer a perspective, and my perspective is that if you truly love to build, you need to think about your life work not as if you're playing a poker game and you only have one hand, the one hand that you've been dealt. You need to play the table. You need to be okay, because sometimes people hold so much of their first idea or the first, and they don't understand. This is your first pancake. It's fine. Like, it's okay to fall. Draw it again. You read the table better. You understand the table better. You understand how you show up in the table better. And it's okay. You're gonna have a second pancake and a third pancake. But I feel that most of the learning you get, most of the learning that is not related to the actual business you get on your first pancake, and that's really important
Hmm.
because you learn about your anxieties within this type of journey, where there's only one person that fail or success is dependent on you,
yeah,
which is kind of scary to some people. But I don't know, after so many products and so many companies, so many three, um I feel like you just get better at this, and you get comfortable with the risk. You get comfortable with understanding what's important to pay attention and what you can let go, and you learn more. I used to think that the idea is important, but then now I think that what's exciting is like the organizing language around what we're trying to make people feel and how we're trying to make the business viable, and then actually get the team into such alignment where you can just like be the conductor, but like
yeah,
they play the music.
Hmm.
That's another step, because it's the product that makes the product. First you're like, oh,
yeah.
can I make a product? Can I make a product successful? Then can I make a product that makes a product that's successful? Which is, you know, it's pretty
What
cool.
What did you learn about yourself during that first startup that you built, like the first pancake? Like, how did you kind of like build a team from scratch, and kind of how do you do things differently than that first time?
I learned that I'm a very anxious person. I don't think I can change it about myself. But I can get very good at understanding that and working with those parts of myself. So I don't think I got less anxious, but the symptoms of it have changed materially. And I know how to calm them down, and I know how to work. So, and maybe I got also a little bit anxious as I grew up, but it not not completely changed. I'm very and the combination of being like really obsessive about stuff or anxious about stuff, um it's not really healthy for a team, and you ask, there's some people, as I said, work with me for years. You ask them how is it to work with Ben now versus that. It's a completely different person. Um, but the truth is that I don't, you know, from my point of view, you can't change a lot of who you are when you're an adult. You can change a lot how you show up and how you dealing with who you are, but there's not. It's like a life journey to maybe get to a point where you completely removed all your anxieties. But you can become a better partner to yourself first. And if you become a better partner to yourself, then you become a better partner to your team because you extend your self compassion, you learn stuff. Then you become patient. You become patient with yourself. You become patient with the team. You become patient with the team. You become patient with the market. You become patient with the market. Now you're Muhammad Ali. Now you're just chill, calm, focused, just present, not thinking about future scenarios. You just
Yeah.
focused on fundamentals of what makes you the best operator and in a sustainable and happy way, how your team feels the same, and then in extension, the product that you're building. And it takes time to get that confidence because in the beginning, I'm talking, when you're just building a company, you have all these scenarios of what should happen, what's going to happen, how it's going to happen, what do you need to do now, tomorrow, you know, and it's completely fine to go through this to the point that you learn that it doesn't matter what's happening in the future. It really
Yeah.
doesn't matter. It matters how you are going through the motions now, and that every movement that you're putting now is the sum of its part is positive. You're having fun, you feel like it's meaningful, it's going towards something that is sustainable. And if you focus on that and you're uncompromising on that, all you need is patience. The second thing is patience. You're good. You're good. Because these are important. These are important lessons that I don't know if you can just take advice for them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can hear somebody's perspective, but it's your own work with your own nervous system to understand that you are the biggest impediment between you and the best version of yourself. That's it. There's nothing else.
Is there anything aside from just going through the mud that made you realize that? Like you talk with a therapist, talking with a partner or anything like that,
Of
or that
course,
helped you through that process?
of course. I have therapists. Um, I talk to a bunch of close friends that we talk about these things, and um, yeah, and you also need to like fail and fall on your face a couple of times, and you kind of like, okay, that's okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And just like surfing, you want to go back to the water. It's okay. You get warm, you get back. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just trying to imagine myself being in your shoes, like as you're building these products, and you have millions or hundreds of millions of people that know about you using the app at any given time. Like the amount of stress that you must have gone through. It's just like at the peak of House Party when I bet things are breaking. Countless people giving you feedback. You have these people trying to invest, these people on your team that you're trying to manage. Like, how do you manage your psyche during moments of peak and moments of the very bottoms, I guess.
Mm, Now I have complete detachment. I used to be, as I said, I used to be very nervous about the cards that have been dealt. And now I'm playing the table. I have complete detachment from the outcome of the game. And all I care about is that I'm having fun and it's meaningful, and the strategy I'm playing is a sustainable strategy that will lead to a good outcome. But I have complete detachment of that.
Yeah, that's great.
And that's where magic, I think, happens because not all the time, but you start to see that like it's almost like you're predicting the future because all the options are available when you're not attached to any of them.
Yeah.
And and it's kind of cool. It's kind of cool when you're just sitting with your intuition and you're focused on now with no attachment of what's going to happen, you know?
Yeah.
And it's cool because then you start at then you start your day and you say like, Taos protocol, I don't care what's going to happen with it. It doesn't, I don't care. I really don't care. But I tell you what I care. I care that when I'm building and I'm working on it, it's sustainable to all the participants. I'm having fun. They're having fun. The people who work on it having fun. And it's going toward real problem that exists that I feel like I'm proud to say that I'm working towards solving it.
Mm.
Who cares if it's successful in the end or not? I have confidence that if I hold those principles inside of me and I listen to my intuition, we're going to be the best team to discover if this thing should be successful or not.
Yeah, that's
That I have
awesome.
confidence. But, who knows what, you know? And that's really important point when you're a small startup and there's all these unknowns and stuff. Like, we don't know what's going to happen, but at least we know that what we're doing, every brick we're laying in this building, we're doing it on a project we're proud of, on a project we feel like it has great fundamentals, and we're having fun, right? Our users having fun, we're having fun, everybody's having fun. And that's I think is the key, because we can't control all the other shit. We can't. There's nothing we can control.
Yeah. Do
Mm.
you think that, like what you just said, users having fun, you having fun, is like the magic that drives like user acquisition and growth for these products? Because they're naturally shareable, they're naturally like network effects driven, whereas other startups might have to like pay a bunch of money in paid marketing to like beg people to or force people to download and delete apps. Um,
I don't know, but I know that, I can only assume that there's part of it because we're all walked in the street and heard some noise on a bar and we looked in and like, oh, look fun.
Mm.
That looks fun. And we walked
Yeah.
in, right? And I think there's a lot of that. And why not? And look, not every project can do fun. Some people like they work on a project that's very serious that it doesn't need to look fun.
So
But then I'm sure that there's a different quality and there's a different people that are running that quality instead of fun replacing it, right? Um, and that will address their users.
yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because like when you built these apps, did you have a growth or user acquisition strategy, or you're just like, let's build something that people want to share with their network, and if we do that, it'll
No,
like
we'd never start with that.
compound.
It never
Yeah.
start with that. It started with what would be cool.
Mm.
What would be cool? What would be cool if I didn't need to FaceTime you. Like we're talking about before group FaceTime. If I didn't need to FaceTime you, if I just open this app and you should get a push notification that I'm on, like I'm live. When he joins, all of our mutual friends get a push notification, they can join. That's cool. Then you build that. If it's exciting, then you think about like, okay, how do we organize the funnel so people get to this exciting moment? Not how they share with the friend. I never think about how do I build a product that people share with the friends. I never thought about that. There are people who are really good at this. For example, my friend Nikita Bear, he thinks about how do we make, no, he's best in the world in
He's the
this.
first person I thought of when you're talking.
He's best in the world because he doesn't think about that. What is the thing that would be cool for people to do? He thinks what will make people share, and he's the best in the world in this because that's what that's how he thinks about this, and he honed that skill. I think what will make you go wow, and later when you have dinner with your friends, you're gonna tell them about this, about what you just experienced without any provocation. And
Yeah.
then I walk back from, okay, how do I organize the funnel of a new user to bring them to that wow? Same things with Meerkat, with live video. You know what would be cool? If you download an app and in one button, after you download one button, all your followers get a push notification, but nobody will have followers on the app. You're right. Let's think about where people already have followers. Twitter. Okay. One button to stream live on Twitter. Okay. With towns, you know what would be fun? What would be great? If we come together online and we have all these tastes and all these opinions about how we coordinate together, we're actually able to capture some of this value. And we're able to keep the reputation that we have and show up in other communities with the reputation we're building everywhere and the value we create everywhere. That would be really cool, you know.
Yeah.
And then that's slightly have more steps to it, but I think there's a lot of fun, delightful way to show this up, to show those qualities up, because people are not being rewarded for the values they're creating online. They need to do a lot of hacks and things, and I think we're finally at a place where we can bring that
Yeah.
to people, and we see it. We've been 6 months since launch. Our group chats have been doing more than $4 million in revenue.
Yeah.
And protocol gets fees of that, and the protocol is like, it looks, we have some conversations with people where they're like, wait, your protocol made 350 ETH in net fees in the past 3 or 4 weeks. Like, yeah. They're like, what? Like, yeah.
Yeah. I guess the obvious question for people who maybe are listening who are crypto curious but not like super like in the weeds is like why build this using crypto instead of building it like in Web2 products or platforms?
There've been a lot of look, I'm not like, if somebody asking, are you a crypto founder now? No, I built communication.
It's awesome.
It is just happened to be that blockchain is a great way to have a permissionless open reputation that you can, like, think about karma points on Reddit, or think about likes you get on Facebook, or subscribers you get on YouTube, or the amount of clout you have in a certain Telegram groups or WhatsApp group. Those are not portable. Not only this, because of many regulations and a lot of ways of how centralized these companies are, you can create really delightful and legal ways for users to acknowledge one another peer to peer.
Mm.
Like, I think it's really great if somebody brings value to a group chat with my friends or with some sort of a community about specific old cars, vintage cars, or trading cards or whatever, that they should be able to tip one another. I think it's really great that they were able to say a tip. Not only this, I actually think that those tips are a derivative of reputation. If I've received many tips around in this platform, when I go and post something on a different group, I want them
You
to
hold a different
see.
status. Yeah.
I want them to see how many tips I got.
Mm.
Those things are
Yeah.
not, and and that's not something that is even remotely possible because of bureaucracy on those Web2 companies.
And they could be gamed,
So,
right? Like I think the equivalent of that for like Instagram and Twitter is like following, or back in the days when you couldn't buy like
but then they
your check
game it.
mark,
Then
but
they
then they
game
game it
it.
because they buy followers or
And
they
what's nice about
figure out a way to.
blockchain is not
Yeah.
only, and blockchain, believe me, there's a lot of ways to gain blockchain, but what's nice about the way you can organize the incentive alignment is that the protocol takes fees. So if a bot try to game the tipping, they're losing
They're
money
gonna
every
pay.
time they're trying to do that, right?
Yeah.
So so blockchain is a terrific way to just say, like, hey, you're the user, here's the identity, you're blended together, here's how many tips each got, you know
Yeah.
and I think this is a fantastic model for reputation, because you can embed the identity with what we call wallet. Users, if you go to towns.com and you start a town or you join a town, you don't even know that you have a wallet. You have no idea. It slowly you learn how to, and if you want, you look, but it's not a requirement. You don't need to, as a user, you don't care about, like, what's the backend, and that's how I look at the blockchain as the backend. This backend enables us to unlock a capped values of community where the reputation is not portable and it's locked in, and
Yeah.
value is really hard to collect and capture, right?
Yeah.
So that's what we're doing. And we're not inventing the wheel here, although it requires a lot of work and lifting to do that. But that's what we're doing at the very basic uh, um, fundamentals of this.
Uh, you're fascinating, man. Like when I think of your progression as like an entrepreneur throughout the years, the question that keeps coming up to me is like, what drives you to keep building companies and starting from scratch? Like it's extremely difficult, especially when you're kind of pivoting
I
to,
love it.
you know, kind of a different industry in a way. I mean, like you say, you're still building communication platforms for people to come together, but doing it in crypto is a little bit different than doing it in a just traditional Web 2. So I guess
But
like,
there's
yeah, what
very
drives you?
people in every industry,
Yeah.
If I get excited about cameras and I want to build cameras, if I feel confident that I have some take on cameras, I don't, by the way. I really don't. But I, I feel like there must be great builders in the camera world of the hardware world where I can enlist them if I get them excited, get them. And this is the same thing here. We have a lot of crypto native builders in our team, and they know I'm not a DJ. Although I made a lot of money personally as an investor in 2019,
Mm.
but I understand the concepts. Do I live it day by day? Some people, depends who you ask. Some of my friends who are not in crypto at all say like, this guy's a DJ. The DJ will say like, you know, you would never guess that this guy is like he raised all this money from all these crypto firms and like have all these thing. But you know what? It doesn't matter because my job is not to be a crypto founder. My job is not to
Yeah.
be a communication. My my job is to bring people together in a way that is unique and exciting and the way that they didn't experience before. Because that's my life. That's my work. Now, if if you're doing something that is interesting in the industry that I'm working at, and I find you to be extremely talented, I'll come and pitch you. And in fact, it's
Mm.
good that I have a lot to learn from you.
Yeah.
It's great. That's why we're talking. You know what I mean?
That was actually my next question is like when you start a new company and maybe you're not the subject matter expertise or I mean you're an expert in communications but you might not be an expert in like the technology or the platform themselves. How do you think about like those initial first hires um and pitching them and finding them and just
Well,
talent in general?
yeah, that's a good question. You have to learn a process when you don't do it. You have to look at like 20 and have a. I do it like this. I just like it has to be a process because otherwise you don't know. To the point about first pancakes, like if you're doing something new in an industry like that you're not familiar with, but you have an insight of feeling, you understand how to read people, you understand what a great engineer look like or what a great designer look like. When you do your first hire, you must talk to 20 of them. To me, I must talk to 20 of those. Why? Because you start picking up flavor and nuances in about the seventh or eighth one. And all of the sudden, there's going to be a ninth one that's like, whoa, I've been talking to like really second tier of what I need. They're not to say that they are by their own value second tier. They're first tier, but for what I need, everyone I talked to till now was a different, like a lower class than this. That's the new bar. And then you
Yeah.
do another 10. And if there's not another one that surprises you, you kind of, you know, and sometimes the opposite. Sometimes you go back to the first one. So guess what?
Yeah, through that process, what does the role of like culture or vibes play? Like, yes, somebody can be good technically or like on paper they're good, but you as you're building out these teams, and you're going to be spending a lot of time with
What
them,
time
going
with
up through
right now?
ups and downs. Like, what does like a culture check or look like to you, or is that even important?
Of course, culture is important, but a culture like you build together in those stages.
Mm.
It's important. You want to see like where the person's actually in life.
Yeah.
Where did they come from? Like what is their history? Big question I ask is like, have they seen great? A lot of people didn't see great. And when you didn't see great, you kind of think you're the great. And that's a problem. That's a real problem. You want to be hiring people that have been in a team that was killing it because they know what a team that was killing it looks like, you know? And I asked that a lot. I said in all types of relationships in my life, is this person seen great? And if they haven't seen great, it's not, it's a red flag, not a red flag on them. I wish, they should, I want them, but I'm not going to spend time on this because there's other options, you know? The other thing I look for is like, why are they talking to me? Not because I'm bad or anything, but why us? What
Like
is
the
the thing?
motives, underlying motives.
No, not question the motive. Is like, why is this interesting to them? Why is this interesting? Like, not in a way of like questioning their motives, but more like trying to understand really. Are are they passionate about the space? Are they curious about working with me or the space or the product? What is the thing that motivates them? And like how easy would it be to them to be coached by a coach that is relentlessly trying to edit the outcome out of their equation,
Mm.
the attachment to the outcome out of the equation, because it's a difficult task, because everybody has like, okay, in 2 years I'm going to make this thing and I'm going to do this thing, and in 5 years I'm going to do this thing, and if I have this amount of money, when you hear this thing, if I have this money, then I do. Mama mia, you can get out of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can't.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I kind of talked a little bit about this, but at the last startup that I did, that was the first hire, and the founder was a very good friend at LinkedIn, and him and I was the head of growth at the social media food startup, and
Mhm.
him and I kind of tag teamed and did hundreds of pitch calls for investors, and it was his first time raising
Hundreds.
capital. Hundreds, yeah, and it was his first time doing it. It was my first time doing it for sure.
Okay.
And I think we probably did so many things wrong. Even now, I probably don't even know if I could identify what we did wrong and right. But you, as somebody who's raised capital multiple times, do you have just any pointers or like pieces of advice for somebody who might be trying to raise capital for the first time? Do's,
No,
don'ts,
I
just
don't.
like,
I don't.
then how do you think that you did it?
Eh, I tell you what, I don't, because I know what works for me. And the thing is, what's worked for me doesn't necessarily going to work for you. The best investors need to fall in love. That's it. That's the truth. That's the honest truth. In those stages, when I'm not talking about Series D and Series E and C and where there's more fundamental. They need to fall in love, and to fall in love, you need to be the bride, not the bridesmaid. And that is, it's how you show up. It's how confident you are, how coherent you are, how vulnerable you are, how much energy you bring in. All of this together should bring something, some curiosity and mystery out of the person you're talking to. Because, seed and eight, it's no, they might as well, it might as well be a dating app. You know what I mean? Like, there's no, like, how would you know? You don't know. You don't
Yeah.
know. You have the story that you tell yourself about the investors. They have the story they tell to themselves about you. And there need to be a moment of chemistry there, you know?
Yeah.
The worst investors, the worst, it doesn't apply to them. But these are the worst one. You see all these weird terms. You see all this. We're lucky in the US. We have great investment culture, and there's a lot of great investors, and they do think about it as a relationship, at least in those seed and A stages, you know.
Mm.
And what's working for me definitely not going to work for you, because it's like saying, is the person who's dating me will date you.
It's a good point.
Two different things. two different
Yeah.
things, But I can tell you, all I can say is that you need to show up authentically and in the way that if you think about it as a romantic relationship, you know, you should think about how you show up. You should think about how, and if you have problems in those areas, it doesn't matter good or bad. It just means like if you have areas that if it's hard for you to be vulnerable
Yeah.
in relationships with other people, there are some investors that it will just not fly. And an entire pitch of great idea with great team that will not will not move forward because there was something about the way you showed up that was not vulnerable enough. And a great investor who is savvy and had enough pattern matching is like, oh, it's not worth my time to try to understand how deep is this issue with vulnerability,
Yeah.
because I get hundreds of pitches, so I'm just moving on, and that's fair, you know.
Yeah.
So
What about once you have those investors on your cap table, how do you go about managing those relationships and like knowing how to sift out good feedback versus bad feedback?
Mm.
Or, you as like the chief, like, vision leader for the company, um,
I
like
simply
how do you go
don't
about
ask for feedback, and they know not to give it unless it's
that's
something
fascinating.
that they can be
Yeah.
helpful with. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely not on product. Never ask investors on product. It's a wrong thing. Investors, the first job is to not do any harm. The second job that they have is to calm your nervous system when shit hits the fan. And then third, third, the third one is to be an accountability layer to your coherence. And it's very like if you're trying to tease out what I'm trying to say is not if the answers you arrived are right or wrong, but are you using math properly?
Mm.
You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
really important that if you're making assumptions and you have hypotheses and you're using data and you explain why the strategy is, but you're delusional, you're missing something, or you're not feeling important today. And that's the third job. That's like, first is do no harm, you know? Second is just like calm the nervous system. And
Yeah.
third is like, is this person coherent? If not, let's just raise the hand and tell them, I don't think you're coherent, you know?
Yeah, I think there's like the running meme or the running joke where it's like, and a lot of like people bash on investors or VCs saying like, like here comes the VC thread on the latest like trends, how they're an expert and how they're going to give you feedback on a product or whatever. It's kind of like,
Yeah, what they're doing, they're trying to get MBA students to like, what are they doing there? I don't even know.
yeah,
I don't know
yeah,
what it's.
um,
Anyways,
yeah.
I
I'm
have
kind of
five
curious.
more minutes.
Okay, yeah, a few more
It's okay.
questions then. What does your average day look like today? Do you have any interesting like hobbies or I'd imagine you're pretty busy as a founder, but how do you spend your free time?
I play piano.
Mm.
I do boxing, Pilates, yoga, soul cycle.
Very active.
Very active. Um, you'll be surprised. My brain needs so much in order to just be calm and focused. It's quite
Yeah,
funny.
I'm like that too.
Uh, and I I go to shows here in New York. I go to a lot of restaurants. I love food.
Mm.
That's how I spend my time, when I'm not doing work. And I don't work that much. I work in my team works probably much more harder than me.
Mm.
And but there would be moments where I need to be like, it's mission critical and I'm in the way, like raising
Yeah.
capital, like launching a thing. Like that's where you can find me sometimes doing 18 hours days,
It's
but
crazy, huh?
it is important, especially as founders, when you're getting to the point where there is a momentum in the team and the balls are rolling by themselves and things are moving forward by themselves, to take a breather. Because when you take a breather and you let things happen and your team move things forward, they step up and they feel more agency,
Yeah.
and that's how you start building that muscle. So it's important also to know where you start letting your team get a little bit more charge and make decisions by themselves, which means that you need to deal with that comfortable truth of like, you know what? It seems like today I don't have any meetings after 3. Maybe I shouldn't like do a bunch of one-on-ones because I don't have anything to do. Maybe I can
Yeah.
just stroll in the park and let them figure it out. And it's beneficial to everyone in the
I
team.
think it is too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's also beneficial to you because it lets your brain rest and be able to think versus
Absolutely.
being in back to back to back.
Absolutely.
There's two more quick questions. You've
Yeah.
mentioned a few different things that relate to like back to music, symphony. I did some research on you. It seems like you're a big music head. So, like, what
Yeah.
role does like music play in your life, and is there any tie back to the products that you've built, or just you as an individual?
Ye- Yeah. I mean, like, if you want things that represent just being in the moment, is, jazz, surfing, boxing. These are, even cooking in a sense. I don't do recipes that much. I look at recipes as like, here's the chord progression, here are little licks here and there, but then, I make my own out of that. And these are good practice of letting go of outcomes and
Yeah.
just enjoy, and that this is my meditation, I guess, practice.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
fascinating. A quick like anecdote. I used to DJ when I was in San Francisco, and I used
Oh,
to get really
nice.
nervous. Like when I would DJ for 500, 400 people, I get really, really
Wow.
nervous beforehand.
Where would you do?
And
Where
like,
would you do?
like 10, 15 Folsom, DNA Lounge, I would do like
Oh,
mostly like,
nice. I've been in
yeah, like,
those places.
yeah,
DNA lunch can get rowdy in the mornings.
yeah. But I would get really nervous then beforehand, and then once I'd be on stage, it's like, whew, like you just kind of like let it all go, and it's like if it goes well, it goes well. If it goes bad, it goes bad. Who cares? But
Exactly. And that's
yeah,
the
I feel like
best
that's
sets.
a
That's the
yeah,
best
exactly.
sets. You lose the time. That's
Yeah,
that's that's the important part. Losing the
yeah.
time, guys.
Last question for you is like, what is all this for? Like, what are you working towards? Do you have anything
We're
that
just
any
talking
big
about the
goals?
outcomes.
Yeah,
No, I don't.
beautiful.
I really enjoy what I do every day. I don't have, I have aspirations about family. I have aspiration about qualities of feelings that I want to have in my life, and I
Yeah,
pursue them, but there's no thing that need to happen.
yeah. It's a great way to live. Cool, man. Well,
Yeah.
thank you, Ben. I appreciate the time today. This has been a
Thank you.
really cool conversation. I found it really
Thank
inspiring
you.
for myself, and I hope
Thank
people
you.
enjoy it as well.
Thank you. I enjoyed it very much. Bye, everyone. Bye, Caleb.